Here we go. Yeah. It's time to listen up because this show's about to get you right. Settle in cause you be tuning into what jujitsu life. Getting to the nitty and gritty of what the game's about. What it's really like when you get paid to fight and train for bouts. Turn it up, turn it up, turn it on louder. About to drop some knowledge, yo, it's Dominguez, Shawn, Fowler. About to give it to you straight, y'all, no filler. Pulling no punches, really couldn't get no realer. I'm a flow spiller, recognize that no one's illa. Keep it locked right on this episode because it's gonna be killer. Elite technique with the flows to get you hyped. I thought you knew with Shawn and Drew, the crew of a jiu-jitsu life.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Shawn Fowler, and I'm here today with Drew Dominguez. Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning.
And we are here with the infamous Pride veteran, Enson Inoue.
Right.
Good morning. How are you, boss?
Morning, good.
So you landed in at LAX, started to drive down, and I heard you got rear-ended.
Yeah, I got rear-ended.
How did that go?
It was a stop-go traffic right at Oceanside, and then when I was at a stop, I just got cranked by the back. See,
was it really bad?
Yeah, it was pretty hard hit, man.
Were you sore?
No, not at all. Something about all the martial arts, I think it's made my body strong.
Of course.
Yeah. So I was okay, but it was a surprise.
Were they nice about it, or just a total accident, or?
Yeah, she was nice. I'm thinking she probably was on her phone because the way she banged me, it wasn't like she just missed the break or she just kind of got lazy and drifted into my.
She looked
car.
down, and that was a wrap.
Yeah, she definitely looked down. Yeah,
she looked down, and then Del Mar area is a tricky area right now because. The fair just ended and now the racetrack, right? So that area is like kind of a Del Mar, Oceanside right there. It's usually a slower area right now.
So it just added another 5 hours to my delay.
Yikes.
From LA to San Diego?
Yeah, because I had to wait for the police for like 2.5 hours.
Really?
Yeah, there's traffic on the highway, and I guess for them to get there takes time, and they kept being, because there's no injuries, they kept getting called to another accident.
Everything else.
Yeah. So we took the Hiller law on priority. So.
And so the lady was fine waiting, or was she just trying to get out of there?
Yeah, well, she was. She wanted to get out of there, and when I talked to the insurance company and the rental car company, they said all I need one from my side, a police report. So they said she can go, but she was pretty cool about it because she told me, I banged you, I can't make you wait alone. Well, not that we're in the same car, but she waited with her car with me, so it's kind of cool about it.
Yeah, she could have just been, she could have been rude about her and they tried to make it, but like you said, she was probably on the phone.
Yeah, and she was real honest about it because I was talking to her about it, saying that, man, I was at a complete stop. Because I know if they're at a complete stop, it brings on that ratio of who's wrong and who's right. Yeah. And she totally didn't deny it, so she was cool about it. No injuries, everything was good. Just 5 hour delay, not a big deal.
That's normal travel schedule, right?
That's crazy.
So you go for it.
No, go ahead.
So you came down to work with the guys at Arena.
Yeah.
And put on a seminar. How did that go?
That went really well. I've done I think 4.
I was going to say, I know you do them every couple of years, yeah.
Yeah, and it's always like a huge turnout. I mean, even you can tell during the seminar when you talk or you say something, the attention that they give you they're really into it. So it was really awesome. Always have good seminars at the Arena.
Yeah, I have to say that Liara Sr. and Barrett and Lucas are very, very supportive whenever it comes to really, like, whenever they get behind their team and they push them, they come as a solid squad. So you're usually guaranteed, 75 to 100 people to show up, guaranteed, so that's a positive.
Yeah.
What do you got, Drew?
When you walked in, we started talking about Purebred. And Shawn was interested in the history as I am.
Yeah.
Can you tell us how Purebred got started?
Okay, it's a long story. Started from actually a racquetball company. Because Egan had a racquetball company called E-Force, and I decided to branch off and make my own rackets and name them Purebred, because I figured the problem we had with making a line of racquetball rackets, we needed to have the name of the rackets on each line, So I figured if you say Purebred, you could just name animals on the line. So it'd be an easy way to name one the eagle, name one the stallion, you could have cool names for rackets. So that's how I started the company. The reason why I became a gym was because when I was training at one of the Shuto gyms, they were going to actually close down because the sponsors that was taking care of the gym didn't want to put any more money into the gym. So it was a big thing. It was one of the biggest Shuto gyms that there was in Japan at the time, and the boss didn't want to close it down or sell it to somebody else that didn't really have their heart in Shuto. So they offered it to me, and because I had already had an established company in Japan, all I did was transfer it to the gym, and that's how Purebred Gym came about. Yeah.
And how many gyms do you have?
I have one in, I think there's a couple in Guam, there's one in Saipan, there's one in Japan, and there's a lot of affiliates all over, but basically 4.
Oh, nice. Mm-hmm. And
so who's the head of Purebred? You and who?
Well, the gyms are all separated where they have separate heads. Like the Guam division is Steve Roberto.
Steve, right?
Yeah, Trench Tech and Purebred Saipan.
The Marianas Open, correct? That's
yeah,
Steve?
Yeah,
correct.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then that's Steve Shimizu. Yeah.
Oh, okay,
Steve
okay.
Roberto is the one who pretty much runs the whole Purebred gym in Guam.
So who actually oversees the association for you guys?
Nobody.
Kind of a series of you guys?
Probably Steve, yeah. Steve Roberto would be the head guy for everything.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And we have Trench Tech. We have Cookie Alvarez in Trench Tech.
Yep.
And then I have one of my students, Ikeda Hisao, running the one in Japan.
Awesome.
Yeah. So
how long has Purebred been around now?
I think I opened up in, I want to say 97 or 96 maybe.
Wow.
1997.
And do you still actually show up at the gym every day?
Not every day, because I got everyone running everything. Like my Japan gym, I think I show up maybe like 3 times a week.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
But you're still super involved.
Yeah, really involved. I'm trying to get more involved in the actual grappling, so I'm getting back into it.
So a couple years ago, I remember you sitting at the seminar. I was actually sitting there. Actually, Drew was there too. And, we were talking about your black belt, and you were like, I don't feel like I'm a black belt. I haven't worn it in so long, and, I shouldn't probably wear it. Like I kind of want to put on a brown belt and go backwards because I feel like I need to catch up with all this modern day jiu-jitsu stuff that's happening. And everybody was like, no, you're a black belt. You can't do that. Like, you'll catch up. Just put in the time. Since that meeting, have you started putting a lot more time into grappling again?
Yes, I have. And
how's your body acclimated to it again?
It's okay. It's a lot stiffer, so the movements I can't do.
Well, we're getting old, man.
I can do some of the movements, but I'm starting to understand the game where it's not something where I jump into. You jump into a big river and you don't know what's in there.
Right.
So I kind of feel comfortable where I know what's going on, and I'm actually deciphering the game a lot better now. So
I like it.
Yeah, but I'm getting. It's funny. It's a full circle because I'm getting a lot of help and advice from my black belts that I gave black belts to.
100%. Well, and then those guys, the thing is that, you've been a very dominating fighter on the other side, on the MMA side of portion of it for so long. And those guys only train jiu-jitsu. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So for them to see jiu-jitsu every day, just like you saw MMA for every day for years and years and years, your knowledge in MMA is like next to none. You're a mentor. You're a legend in that aspect. And those guys, they see it as, they're reciprocating everything that you've done for them. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? So it's really big, and it's really like that's what this is about. Be something bigger. Be a part of something bigger than you are. You know what I mean? And being able to reciprocate and we can learn something from everybody, even the youngest blue belt. We can learn something from everybody if we just take our time and listen and don't have an ego about it. And I think seeing your guys reciprocate comes full circle for everything that you've created, and that's huge.
And the funny thing is, when I think it was after I talked to you guys, I actually went and started rolling a lot more in the gym, and I was actually having problems with my purple belts. Mm-hmm. And I just, as something for myself personally, I just thought, okay, wait a minute, I want to be honest to myself, and I want to maybe put on a different color belt to start and build myself back. And I just out of something personal, I just put on a purple belt. I figured, okay, I'm about a purple belt level, and if my black belts think I'm already brown, then okay, I'll put on a brown. Not like I need to be promoted, but just visually, I'll just start putting on the belt that I feel that I'm
comfortable with the game.
Yeah, right. And it was crazy, and I just decided to put up a Facebook post, just a real fast, like, okay, sitting in the purple belt, saying, okay, I'm purple belt from now. Man, that went nuts. I had podcast, like maybe 5 or 6 all over the world asking me they want to talk about it. I had criticism from maybe 3 or 4 guys that thought that I was being fake or trying to get publicity.
No.
And I noticed, though, the ones that were criticizing me were ones that probably didn't roll anymore. So I almost think they felt like it was a direct insult, saying that your guys aren't black belts either, which it wasn't the case, you know. But I got a lot of props from a lot of other people. So.
And I like it. I understand the theory behind it and the logic, and I totally get where you're going with it. And I think one thing that people fail to understand, and you do get a lot of heat from guys that just show up and teach class and they don't roll anymore. Mm-hmm. And guys that aren't even that old, guys that are 40 years old, and they don't roll with their students. And, I see a lot of articles online about black belts that roll with their students. Personally, if you're injured, I totally get it. If you, some guys, they're just not into it anymore. You know what I mean? And that's probably the time to hang up your hat. You can reciprocate some other way, but I personally, and being accountable for this is very, very important too. At 45 years old now, I still roll with my students almost every day, unless I'm hurt, injured, or my body's just beat up really bad that day. And I personally want to do this until I'm 80 years old, you know what I mean? Or 85, until the day I can no longer actually roll with my students. That is the day that I have to take a step back and I have to go, okay, this isn't fair. I can't reciprocate this the way that it's supposed to be done because I can't roll with my students anymore. And at that point, I think it's time for me to hang up my hat and pass it on to the next generation. But I hope my body doesn't rust up and fall apart, that we can do this until we're 80 or 85.
Well, I'm 52, still doing it. So.
There we go. See, we got hope. We got hope.
That's what I like about jiu-jitsu. I'm a blue belt. I'm a blue belt, but I like the fact that we can roll with the brown belt. Or, there are times where I roll with my professor, which is Professor Tim Pablo. He's a black belt under Barrett. And it feels good, not the fact that you're getting smashed, but you can learn something from.
Yeah. I think it's important. Of course, there's ones that don't want to do it, and maybe it's out of their comfort zone anymore because they're getting older, or they feel that they can't keep up with the new school, and that's cool. But for me, I want to roll with my students always, and it was interesting with that whole process because I was getting a lot of the few criticism I got. On top of that, I got a lot of people saying about humility but I was sitting back thinking, I don't know, it doesn't feel like it's anything about humility for me. And a lot of people thought it was because how everyone they're dying to get their black belt, but here I am going the opposite way and taking away my own black belt. And I was kind of confused because I thought I didn't feel like I was being humbled in any way. I know I wasn't trying to get attention or trying to do something for some media, but I sat there and I couldn't understand it. And John Lewis, when I talked to John Lewis about it, he put it into a good perspective. He said that it's a lack of humility as a black belt. And when I sat back and I thought, okay, when I put on the purple, I was thinking, oh yeah, now I'm going to roll wherever I go, And I felt like, maybe because I had the black belt and I didn't feel like I was a black belt level. I felt real comfortable, just going anywhere and rolling besides my students. So when he put that out, I was saying, wow, these people think I'm humble. I think now John hit it on the spot, saying that I had lack of humility as a black belt. And I think I had to own up to that and, don't worry about it. Don't worry about how I look or what people think. Don't worry about me not being able to pass a purple belt's guard. So when that happened, I felt like there was a weight off my shoulders, and everything got easier.
Most recently, we interviewed Josh Hanger, and Josh Hanger is a very talented black belt under Gavao, and he travels all over. And his transition from Indiana to California, whenever he first came to start training full-time with Andre, he made it very clear. He's like, dude, he says it was so frustrating being in that competition room. He goes, because there were purple belts like Rolando Sampson, which is obviously Rolando's been training since he was a little kid. The Ruotolo kids, the twins, I probably Liera was only a purple belt back then too at that time. A few others like Nassar, and he said, man, they were beating my ass in the beginning. And he goes, and I had to realize, like, okay, this is part of the process. And he said, I had to let myself down too and let the ego go, because he said at first he felt really frustrated because, he's in the room with all these world champions, but these kids have been training since they were, 6, 7, 8 years old, and now they're 18, 19 years old, but they're purple belts and they're just beating your ass, and that next generation of jiu-jitsu, these kids are phenoms, man. They're absolute phenoms.
It's amazing.
And, we can learn a lot from them. Like, they do transitional things that we've never really been into, because we were taught smash mouth control, you know what I mean? Where these kids, their transitional game is so fluent and flowing that they can catch you in any angle, which is amazing. So, yeah, I get it.
Yeah. So yeah, it's I'm getting comfortable with everything though now.
I like it.
And the funny thing is, I don't see myself as a real egotistical person. But I guess in that case, I did have a little bit of ego where I felt to that point of having an ego to a point where I wanted to change and put a purple belt on.
I think it was just a perspective thing for you. You weren't looking at it maybe from an ego point. It was just it was a perspective thing, and you were thinking to yourself, like, I haven't worn a black belt in so long.
Yeah.
And these guys, like, I get on the mat, and the minute I get on the mat, I feel like I'm a fish out of water right now, because their movement and their flow game is totally different than me, controlling you up against the fence with an underhook, you know what I mean? Or standing in base against the fence and climbing the fence with my shoulders. It's totally different, Now you're playing a game where you're pinning them, side control, and you actually are maximizing the weight on the four corners underneath the armpits and the hips, and you can't move.
Yeah.
So it's a different game for sure.
It is totally. Man.
How long did you wear the purple and brown?
3 days.
3 days. Did you go?
Because when that thing blew up, that's when I started assessing a lot of in a deeper way. That's when I started talking to John Lewis and got his input. And I sat there like 3 days later, like, this is going to look stupid. I'm going to have to put on the black belt again, because what everyone said, especially John, made so much sense. Like, how can I thought I was making the right decision, but I realized in 3 days that I did make the wrong decision, and I wasn't going to be the person that doesn't want to admit I made a mistake. So I did put it on, and I put a little post on it after that. Of course, that kind of stuff doesn't get as much recognition as the first one.
Of course.
But yeah, but I feel comfortable now.
Did you get a lot of negative?
No, just a couple guys. I totally forgot their names, but they're pretty much prominent names. But it didn't bother me, because some of the comments they made wasn't anything that really.
Not disrespectful,
It was. I didn't know who. I know they didn't know who I was, so they were looking at it an outside perspective. That generally the percentage of the people that would do something like this would probably have this type of movement.
Right.
They didn't know who I was or what I was deep down, so I knew I didn't understand that. Of course, after I got all the feedback, I posted all of them with the pictures of them and their comments, and I posted all the negative and the positive. So, yeah.
And that's looking at it from an accountability perspective, you know what I mean? Like, you're being accountable of your actions, and there is nothing deeper as a mentor or a person of clout, right? Or a person in a position where you're a leader. We have to be accountable of who we are and what we're doing. And whenever we do that portion, it goes a long way in who we are and what we're doing.
Yeah.
Let's change this up a little bit. You last fought in 2010, right? Was that your last fight?
Yeah, I think so.
2010. How do you see MMA now compared to back then when you were coming up?
It's a lot different. It's more of a business or it's more of a sport, and some people even say it's moving into the entertainment side, which is for me a little disappointing. Being an old school fighter where we fought for honor, and it wasn't about money or sponsorships or being famous. It was just about testing yourself and testing yourself against someone you thought that would bring you into a very uncomfortable spot that you had to work out of.
Do you have any like current fighters that you like to watch that have your style?
I just met what's his name? Crew from Australia. He's fighting. Oh, that guy! They came over and flew over to Japan for me to, do like a thing where I work with him a little bit, talk to him, and he interviews me. And when we talked, he had that same mindset that I had, and I felt like that's so awesome. It's like a diamond in the rough. And I just was wondering how hard it would be for him to keep that type of mentality in this day and age, because it's a lot harder now because you're not allowed to express that type of mentality in this day and age because they stop the fights really soon. He doesn't shit talk like other people do. Shit talk is something that Conor does to sell the fight.
Right.
But for us, it's a personal thing.
It's funny. Historically, and I think MMA, being that I was there for the grassroots of it too, like you, I think MMA was very authentic back then. Mm-hmm. It was very authentic and grassroots, right?
It was a martial art.
It was a real martial art. And everybody, for the most part, I mean, even in the old days, a lot of guys were one-trick ponies. They were only karate guys, in the early days with the Tough Man contest before, the UFC kicked off in '93 in Denver at the Pepsi Center, by the way, by my house. It's interesting to see the growth of it and where it's went, and being in the early days of Total Combat, starting back in '99, 2001, whenever we kicked off that show, there wasn't a lot of shit talkers back then. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Tito was authentic, and whenever he was in front of the camera, Tito wasn't really even a trash talker. He was to a point, but it was more to hype everybody and just be the hype man. There was none of that stuff back whenever, you guys were really fighting. Randleman was kind of a voice. Rampage was a voice. But you didn't have a lot of trash talking. Everybody was pretty, mellow whenever it came to that. And everybody was friends for the most part, too, outside of the cage. Because at some point, everybody trained together, which was awesome, too. So I think... yes, it has turned more into an entertainment gig, and I understand it. I think it's lost its authenticity in a lot of ways, and truth be told, I walked away from MMA in 2008, doing the shows and chasing it and being a part of the scene and going from show to show, like, Strikeforce to WEC, back to Vegas for the UFC, back to a King of the Cage, because we had guys fighting all over the place. And my sole focus became jiu-jitsu at that point. I was burnt out on MMA, and fast forward now 10 years, and I feel as though MMA is dying. I don't feel that it's there anymore, because here in San Diego, we used to be the pinnacle of MMA, if you think about it. We had probably between here and LA, we had the most MMA schools with some of the best talent besides what was in Japan. And what few were coming out of Brazil as well, but 90% of the talent was coming out of either Japan or Southern California. And I mean, Brazilians would move here, people would move here from other places in the Midwest and the East Coast. Outside of Greg Jackson in New Mexico and Duke Rufus, there wasn't a lot of camps putting out guys. And even today, it's still just as minimal.
Yeah, I think you're right. It has moved towards the entertainment side. And I think that's why a lot of people are losing interest. And if you really think about it, a normal person like myself, I can't go train MMA and get the real feel of it, sparring and fighting every day. But in jiu-jitsu, I can. Mm-hmm. I can't go roll around with higher belt, the purple, brown, black, and get that feeling of what it really feels like to actually fight.
I think the secondary curveball on that, right, is in Enson's day, there was like one show like every 3 to 4 months.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so everybody talked about it. It was the focus. Everybody knew that Enson was fighting on May 13th. Mm-hmm. Everybody knew that Rampage or Ricardo Arona was fighting on July 17th. Like, that was the sole focus. Now, you have the Contender Series. You have the UFC. What is the other show that they do where you go and you try out for it? You used to live in the house, in the fighter house. Tough, whatever. You have all of these different shows, and I get it. Like, they're building up the prospective fighter. All of this trash talk TV is what sells. Blah blah blah. But the truth of the matter is that the 600-pound gorilla became so saturated. There's so many shows, and sometimes they're doing 4 to 5 shows a week. Yeah. Nobody knows who's even fighting anymore. There's, unless you're part of that 0.001% where you're at the top and you're the poster boy for them, people like Anderson Silva, they're not going to remember them. You know what I mean? Like Anderson Silva, yes. Matt Hughes, yes. You know what I mean? Tito Ortiz, yes. Chuck Liddell, yes. But in today's society, like, who do we know besides Conor? Yeah. I mean, if you put the card in front of me now, dude, honestly, 25 out of 30 of those fighters on that card, honestly, if they're not big names that I've known for 20 years at this point, I don't know any of them.
The last card, I think I only knew the top 4, the last 2 fights.
And that's pretty crazy, right? Considering we've been around this industry for as long as we have, to only know that many guys. Because, I mean, I get it. Like, it's a next generation thing. There's up-and-comers and so on and so forth. But my historical focus and the trend on the up-and-comers of what I used to watch in MMA and matchmake and so on and so forth, my sole focus is on jiu-jitsu now, because there's real superstars in jiu-jitsu, and they're authentic, and they're not trash talkers, and it's a martial art first and foremost, for the most part. Now, we are starting to get a couple of trash talkers, but they're getting quieted down, outside of that.
I think that's because I think they see how Conor was able to capitalize on all that.
100%.
You do have a few guys in jiu-jitsu that
and that's why Dylan began to do what he started to do, hanging out with Conor, you know what I mean? Gordon does a lot of trash talk, but the truth of the matter is that Gordon still, whether people know it, he's genuinely a really, really good dude. Like, Gordon donates to the charity stuff, man. Like, Gordon goes out of his way. If you talk to him in person, he's not an arrogant person. He's usually very humble. He sounds arrogant online, but for the most part, Gordon's really, really a nice guy whenever you talk to him face to face. So,
do you work with any MMA fighters that you guys go to your gym that you get ready for fights?
Just my students and my girlfriend. Yeah, if anything, she's the one that actually brought me back into the gym. Okay. When she started fighting. Yeah.
So, are you traveling with any MMA guys right now, and your girlfriend, or are you? No, is anybody just in Japan? Just the one championship, or smaller shows too?
Shuto. She fights in the Shuto shows. Yeah.
Nice. So how many shows do they still have in Japan? Because I know it's a little bit quieter, and we don't always hear what's going on over there versus here, but nonetheless,
there's still a lot. The Pancras is doing really well. There's still Deep. There's the Rising is coming up right now, and there's a bunch of kickboxing associations. So there's still it's a pretty.
Isn't it crazy because kickboxing just faded away in the U.S.?
It was here in the U.S. I just think it was on a really, really small level.
Right.
Yeah, going back to the change of the martial art, the thing that I'm probably bothered the most about is the lack of honor and respect in the sport, for your opponent, for yourself, for the whole association. And with that comes the fact that these guys like Conor are very, very bad role models for kids.
Right.
I agree.
You got guys like Damian Maia, they're real respectable. Robbie Lawler, they are very good role models. Yeah. But you got guys like Conor doing what he does, Kobe Covington doing what they do. and they're at the top of the division, and you got kids that are coming into the sport watching those kind of guys, and I believe that's such a bad thing, and maybe that's the reason why martial art MMA is taking maybe like a little bit of a nosedive in popularity. If I was a parent and I didn't really know what MMA was and I saw that, I wouldn't want my kids going into a sport that had the top guys talking and criticizing the opponent's family, religion, and country.
I agree, because even in wrestling, wrestling is an ego game. There is an ego behind wrestling because you want to be the best of the best. You get what you earn, right? Effort equals reward, 150%. You get what you earn. And with wrestling, there's still a common bond and a mutual respect for the athlete across the mat from you. I think in today's, whenever we were kids, we had the WWF, people like Andre the Giant and Hulk Hogan. And yeah, that turned into a really big entertainment business, and I honestly, I don't know how it is now. I know that they travel a lot. I know there's a lot of trash talk. But I remember as a kid, people like the Junkyard Dog and Jimmy Superfly Snuka and Tito Santana, they weren't trash talkers. They were hype guys, you know what I mean? And they'd walk in the ring and they'd flex out, and they would scream and shout and stuff like that. But there was no real trash talkers, you know what I mean? Unless it was, come on, we're going to get in the ring and settle this now, you know what I mean? But I think today that's changed too, right? The game, it's elevated.
Like you said, it's entertainment. It's going towards the entertainment side. And I think that's why people or these guys think that, like you said, Colby Covington, he is doing what he's doing for that extra notoriety, per se.
Right.
But to me, it's not entertaining. We could do without all that. Like you said, just go in there, respect yourself, respect your opponent, respect your organization, go in there, fight. Win, lose, draw.
I'll tell you who I have a lot of respect for right now in the ring is Brian Ortega.
Yeah.
He's a very humble kid, and I remember Brian, this is really funny, you go back 10 years, and I remember Brian Ortega doing the Gracie Nationals at the convention center, and he was just a blue belt back then. And Heilig taking the mic and saying, I'm getting ready to give this kid a purple belt, but I want to see him compete today. So I'm going to make him compete, and we'll see what he gets. You know what I mean? Henner was going to give him a purple belt. And he said, but right now, you're going to see some amazing jiu-jitsu. And Brian went out there and put on a show. And he's just always been a good kid. And now you look at him today, and that's still transparent with everybody that he's dealing with. And I can really, really take a guy like that has absolute respect for everybody, but he's still looking at community back at home and maintaining humble grounds. Like even John Tuck, John Tuck is another one. I really appreciate their humility and their community-based love for where they're from too as well, and still looking back at that and giving back to their people because their people look up to them. And that right there is really big. I find that very transparent for everybody and very exciting for everybody as well.
If anybody follows you on Instagram, you talk a lot about loyalty and things like that. Is that kind of what created the Yamato Damashii way?
It's a big
help spread that way of living.
For Yamato Damashii, loyalty is a big part of the way. Yeah, as you know, loyalty is something that sometimes pulls you in a hard point where you have to make a choice of who you're going to stand by and show loyalty towards a certain person when there's an internal conflict. So Yamato Damashii is not about just being tough. It's about making the right choices, even though the right choice might be the hardest choice.
And that goes in life, on the mat, off the mat.
All right, it goes back to accountability.
Yeah.
Vulnerability, accountability, and transparency. You know what I mean? Like it really, all of those things are key elements to being a leader. And we're going to make errors as leaders, but at the same time, as long as we're accountable for our actions and we fix it, you know what I mean? Then we can move forward and keep going.
Right, but you do have people out there that are not like that.
Oh, 100%.
Even
that's
in
everywhere.
Jiu-Jitsu, you have people that are not like that. They just won't.
But as a leader, as a black belt of our organization, and I can speak to this, and I know Enson can too, as long as we educate our students on that way of life, more than likely, the seeds that we're planting with those students are going to develop in those people, making them better people. That's our job, is to make better people in front of us. That's what martial arts is about.
So you said your black belts, your brown belts, you have to instill that in them.
Oh, you have to instill it all the way from white belt.
Sure.
The minute they walk in the door, you instill it in them the minute they walk in the door. And if you don't instill that in them, then you're doing them a disservice as a leader, and you're also doing a disservice to them as a black belt. This is the thing. A lot of times your students will mirror and echo the professor 150%. After you've been with them for 5, 6, 7 years, if you're an asshole at a tournament, okay, and you're a jerk to the referees all the time, your students are going to mirror and believe that that is the way to act. Now, I'm a firm believer in people need to lose. There's only first, second, and third place. And if you didn't place, you earn what you got. Okay, you get what you earn, 150%. And people are afraid and ashamed to let people take losses now. And they can make excuses about it. Oh, I didn't get the result that I wanted. Nobody cares, bro. Nobody cares. Like, the truth of the matter is that, you know what? Did you go out and have a good time? Did you learn something out there? What did you take away from that match right now that you just did? Win, lose, or draw, what did you take away from it? You know what, Professor? I realized that I need to lose a little bit more weight. I need to be better in my takedowns. I need to work on my armbar defense. You know what? You just learned something. You just won. It's
a victory itself.
That's a victory, because you were able to come back and give me, as your professor, knowing that I saw everything that happened right now in that match, whether it was a fight in MMA or whatever, you were able to come back to us and give us feedback on what we know that we saw, but we want to hear what you think you have to work on.
Yeah, I just don't understand. I agree. I agree with everything you just said.
That's winning.
But there's a lot of people out there just won't accept that. Like
But
you said, there's
once again, that is our job as a professor, to influence that in them. And if we don't influence and instill that in them, then they're never going to know. And you are going to get bad seeds. Those are the bad seeds that weed themselves out, and they get kicked out anyway. They get sent somewhere else. For me, I don't play that in my gyms. You guys know this, 150%. My student base will tell you. Brandon will tell you. Brandon does not play it. We do not do this. With 2 gyms and 300 students, I do not believe in this philosophy. I do not sit there and sugarcoat anything for the students. Neither does Brandon. Neither does any of the other 11 black belts that are here, because losing is part of life. And if we can't teach people that losing is actually winning, then we're doing a disservice to them. It's our job to teach them to be better people. I don't care if you go out and you lose tomorrow at a tournament. I don't care. If you took something valuable from that match, or if you took something valuable, okay, case in point, he knows this, and I know he sees this all the time. How many times do you have people come through the door? And I know in Japan, the culture's a little bit different, but let's just say you get an American that comes to Japan, or you get this kid that comes in with ego that comes from Guam, or, from Europe even, from the UK to come and train with you guys. How often do people come in the door once in a while with an ego, and you guys have to take the ego out of them?
Yeah.
It happens. It's part of the game.
Yeah.
Just like in MMA, it was the same way.
Yeah.
That's why, if you look at old school jiu-jitsu, you hear guys say, no bitch-assness. Barrett's a believer in that. All the purebred guys are a believer. Carlson Gracie Sr., Jr., those guys are all believers in that. Salo, Sanji, they're smash mouth jiu-jitsu. You know what I mean? Their MMA stuff is the same way. You look back at the old guys, that's the way it was taught. It's our job to reciprocate that knowledge into our students to make them better people. And if we're not doing that for them, if we're not teaching them to be effective leaders, if we're not teaching them to be young adults, if we're not teaching them about respect, then you're not teaching jiu-jitsu. You're not teaching a martial art.
There's a disadvantage of the whole martial arts scene, whether it's jiu-jitsu or MMA, moving into the entertainment business, because in the entertainment business, the whole decision on a win and a loss is decided on whether your hand is raised in the ring or not after the fight. And I think that's a real shallow aspect of the journey as a martial artist. For me, I believe that the only way you can get defeated is in your heart that you've given up in the fight.
I agree.
So for me, I'm undefeated. I got put in hospitals, I got knocked out, I got choked out unconscious, but I still haven't lost because they never broke me inside. And I believe in my way of thinking of a victory, you're going to decide a victory not if your hand is raised or not raised. It's going to be decided if you can step into the ring a better fighter in the next fight or the next jiu-jitsu match. Then the experience, the match that you had before is a victory, because that's what it's all about. It's about getting better. It's about learning. And, you know, you look at my career, I learned a hell of a lot more in the Frank Shamrock or Igor fight than I did with Randy Couture. And if you look at the people that don't see the deep part of it, the martial arts part of it, they're probably going, Randy was like your biggest victory. Superficially, yeah, in the real shallow.
Statistically.
For me, as a person, in my spirit, in my heart, and as a man growing up, I didn't learn that much in Randy's fight.
Right.
Igor and Frank, man, I learned so much.
And I can see the value in that, because the truth of the matter is at the end of the day, us giving back to them. And you know, you taking a loss. Like, this is the truth of the matter. If you look at this from a bigger perspective, and let's just say really big, okay? Training all the years I did with like Rolando Sampson and Liara Jr. and Nassar and all these kids that were coming up, those kids are world champion material. If you look at statistically, all of those kids are world champion material. The Ruotolo twins, you name it, they are world champion material. Me, I'm an old guy, dude. I started old in the game, okay? So to even have earned a black belt, that was a win for me, man. That's just a win. And the truth of the matter is that, yes, I competed all the way through, man, every tournament you could possibly imagine, man. Arizona, I went to Arizona. I went to Chicago. I went to, you know, I did stuff with Gustavo Dantas. I did IBJJF. I did NABJJF. I did my own tournaments. Every time I would put on a show, I would go out there and put my belt on, and I would just go, I'd literally be calling brackets to tables, and I'd put my belt on, and I'd run out there, and I'd compete, and I'd come back, and I'd keep running brackets like the show was still running. You know what I mean? Just because there was a guy on the other side of the mat that needed a competitor, and I wanted him to compete. Okay? And even today, as crazy as this is, whenever I get kids that come in with autism and stuff like that, their coaches will call me and they'll say, man, he needs a competitor. Dude, I'll put on a blue belt today and I'll go out and I'll compete with that kid. And you want to know something? It's worth everything to watch that kid stand up and put his hand up in the air, man. And what does that do to me? It doesn't hurt my ego. That's a win. You know why? I just gave that kid perspective. Why? He went out there and he fought his heart out. And on top of it, at the end, the confidence that you just instilled in that kid by getting his hand raised, dude, and he's standing up there shooting his guns to his friends, you know, and everything. It's the best feeling in the world, man. Yeah. It's the best feeling in the world to know that you gave back and you were part of that kid's journey, making his life better, because he has autism. You don't know how high the spectrum is, functional autism or any of that, but you just gave back to that kid. And the truth of the matter is that I've competed at all those levels, and I'll never be a world champion. I'll never be. But you want to know something? Every tournament that I went into, this was my thought. Today, all I'm going to focus on is kills. I don't care about points. I don't care if I lose by 25 points. All I'm going to do is focus on kills. If I go in there with that mindset and I can walk out of that match at the end of the match, and let's say I lost, if I know that I attacked every single chance that I possibly had, did I just win? Hell yes, I did. And it wasn't about tapping. It wasn't about winning that match. It wasn't about anything. I would walk in there with a game plan, and I remember being a blue belt, getting off the mat at an IBJJF tournament. It was like Pans or something. And I remember walking off that mat. I took like second place in the tournament. I didn't care about that part. I didn't care about that at all. I just remember walking off the mat, and I was in tears. I was in tears because not only had I gotten my weight down, I competed at a lightweight class versus a middle heavyweight or something like that. But I remember walking over to Salo in tears, and I told him, thank you for giving me my life back. And he was like, what do you mean? And I said, you know, I've been an athlete my whole entire life. I played sports my whole life. But you hit a certain age and the sports start to run out. What are you going to play? Co-ed softball? Co-ed soccer? I mean, there's nothing in that. What is that? You know what I mean? Like, and don't get me wrong, it's awesome. It's fun to play. There's nothing wrong with it. But whenever you played hardcore sports your entire life, football, basketball, baseball, you know, all these different things, there's nothing left once you hit a certain age, man. Not contact-wise, aggressive-wise. What do you do? And I think a lot of people that's where they start to live vicariously through their kids' eyes, and in some cases become bullies to their kids, right? No, because they want to see their kids be winners, and unfortunately, I see that all the time, and I think it's a bad mindset. But if we continue to be progressively good people and we teach our kids to be good people, my point to Salo was, you just gave me my life back, man. Jiu-jitsu changed my life overnight. The minute that I agreed to definitively, and this is where you have to understand the difference, and I know Enson feels like I do. Whenever it comes to this point, you have to genuinely let the martial art in your life and believe in it before it'll do anything for you. Prior to that, it's not going to help you. It's only going to do so much for you. Once you genuinely believe in it and let it in your heart and believe, it's going to change your life overnight. But you have to egotistically leave the ego at the door, come in, be willing to work, be consistent at least 2 to 3 times a week, and genuinely dedicate yourself to the lifestyle. And once you do that, your life's going to change overnight. Your professors are going to teach you a lot. They're going to make you a better person. That's what martial arts is about. And if you're being taught anything less than that, then I understand the sport jiu-jitsu aspect of it, but first and foremost, this is a martial art. It's not a sport. That's all there is to it.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter what level you're at. IBJJF, EBI, any of that. Our job as professors is to teach our people to be better people, not only in the gym, but in the world.
That's pretty touching there, man.
I be trying.
You went deep. You went deep for a second.
But it's the truth.
No, I agree.
You're talking about, like, he's talking about his the loyalty aspect and the way. It's deeper. It's deeper than people understand. And if we don't look at that from a perspective as leaders, then we're doing a disservice not only to our people but to community.
Oh, you're right. I agree. I agree 100%. Let's switch it up a little bit. Your bracelets there, Destiny Forever.
Yeah.
How's that going?
Very good, very good. It's Power Stones and bracelets that I make personally.
Right. And I guess if I'm wrong, let me know. But I know that you started making these to help fund some of your trips to was it Fukushima?
Yeah. Well, I started making them for myself as a hobby.
Okay.
Yeah, and then I just enjoyed making them, and I used to always wear them for protection. And when I started doing a lot of missions up north, I used my own money, so I made one that represented the north, and the funds for that particular style was all going to the.
Are you still making trips up north?
Yes, I'm on number 55 now.
Wow.
I've been doing it continuously for the last 8 years. So it wasn't a thing where,
when you did the walk.
Yeah, I did the walk. When the disaster happened, there was a lot of celebrities came out and did some publicity thing where they went up north. Mm-hmm. But that was like 1 or 2 or 3 trips within a year, and then they disappeared from it. It wasn't genuine.
And you did a walk, right? Your first relief mission was a walk, right?
Yeah. Well, I did the walk just to bring out the awareness to people around the world that the people in Fukushima are still suffering, because it was already out of the news. And everyone thought everyone was okay, but it still was really bad.
How is it now?
It's still bad. Still bad. Yeah. So it's almost the same level of how bad it is, but it's in a different part of the. It's like now the people are displaced back into their homes, out of the temporary housing, and a lot of their houses weren't. Nobody lived in it for like 8 years. So you can't go back and live in that house anymore. So a lot of people were sent back to their homes but couldn't live there. The nuclear water is still coming out of the plant every single day. So it's pretty bad. It's just not in the news anymore.
So your 55th trip, you said?
Yeah, 55. So a lot of times I go to Hawaii a lot for the bracelet bracelets. I have a shop open in Hawaii now, and so I go there a lot to make sales. And a lot of times from the sales from there, I can't mislead people and say that my Destiny Forever is a charitable company. It's not. It's a company that I own. I just choose to use a lot of the money, a big portion of the money that is made out of Destiny Forever for the people of the North. So a lot of times when I go to Hawaii, I go back from here, from San Diego, I go back to Hawaii for another 8 days to open up the shop and do custom sales. And when I get back, I usually go out to the North every time I get back from Hawaii. So yeah, the bracelets do help with the people in the North.
And you drive up there you drive up there now?
Yes, we drive up there, yeah. Me and my girlfriend, Sarah, we both drive up there. It's about a 3-4 hour drive up north. And we go right into it.
That's interesting because, like you said, when it first happened, you see everybody's in the news, everybody wanted to help, everybody was trying to do something. Why do you think people just disappear? I mean, we're human beings, you can't just let another human being.
Well, a small percent of it was doing it for publicity. Yeah, and then there was another percent that only, it wasn't really deep in their heart, but it's something that they saw on the news and something that hit them in a way that they wanted to do something, but it wasn't something really deep down that they felt in their heart where they would continue no matter what. Yeah, so people went up and helped, and some people just stopped, and there's a lot of people that kept going, and I'm one of them.
I followed you from the first walk, and okay, so the walk was no food, no money, no food. How did that work?
Well, I wanted to put myself as close as I could to the people that are suffering from the tsunami and the nuclear disaster. So I wanted to make it a journey where if we didn't have love and support from people around us, it wouldn't be possible. There's a lot of people in Japan that was evacuated their homes. Their life without the help of other people wouldn't have been possible. So that's why I made restrictions on the walk. It was 1,360 miles. It took us 68 days, and I made a restriction where I would not pay for any food, water, or hot lodging. So if you think about it, walking 1,360 miles with no money and no food, I mean, it's pretty much impossible. So I believe that if I didn't get help that we did along the way, we had people put us up in their houses, we had people bring us water, If we didn't have that help, it wouldn't have been possible. So I wanted to put myself in that same shoes of the people. And as close, of course it will never be the same as losing everything, but put myself as close as I can to that situation. And little did I know, of course it was about bringing awareness, because we wrote a little sign saying that we're walking to help the people in North Japan have the fighting spirit to keep going. And what I didn't know was that I was actually giving inspiration to the people up north, because we walked from the north to the south, we were walking through the tsunami areas. Wow. Walking to the places that were still not even back on their feet. And we had a couple people come up, and truck drivers started honking their horns. And
I think it was huge.
There was one guy that came up and started crying, telling us, thank you, we've been forgotten. And it was I just did it to bring awareness to the world through my social media that the people of the North are still suffering. And little did I know, I had a little side effect to it that was really awesome, was that the people of the North that saw me walking felt an inspiration that they weren't forgotten.
That's really awesome. And it's deep too at the same time. I don't think a lot of people understand what it took for you guys to actually do that walk, and the amount of the level of awareness and the support that you got from everybody, actually worldwide, because you guys were followed daily. Everybody was looking at you and what you guys were doing. Yeah, it was huge. It was really huge.
16 hours a day, man.
Yeah, and I don't think a lot of people understand. Whenever you believe in something, it goes so much further based on authenticity than somebody, fake it to make it. The fake it to make it theory is slowly fading away. People don't get it, and people are starting to finally see the authenticity in others. And it's just everything has to ride its course, like always. You know what I mean? But the truth of the matter is are you here for the longevity of it, or are you here for the short term? You know what I mean? And as community, like I said, going back to who we are, mentors, etc., it's our job. Community is what we are, 100%. And if we're not giving back to the community, we're doing a disservice. It's called reciprocation. You know, we might have come from nothing, but us giving back is huge. You know what I mean? Even if it's just a little bit. And you know, $1 here and $1 there, like, honestly, I don't need very much, man. I'm a simple dude. I need very little to survive. You know, you give me food, you give me water, you give me some shorts and a t-shirt or a pair of Levi's and some tennis shoes, and we're good. I don't need anything else. I'm simple.
Yeah, with my missions up north, I've realized that my happiness is about helping people.
100%.
Yeah, so, you know, like, there's a lot of people out there that still believe that the true happiness in life is the happiness of receiving.
And that's everywhere. That's everywhere.
We've been raised
instead
like
of
that,
giving.
You know, as far as our birthdays is our special day.
Right.
Everyone brings us presents because we're almost set as a mold to believe that happiness is receiving.
Right.
But if you really live life and you can open that awareness, you realize that the giving is actually the best part of life, and that's what
I agree
feel in the missions, and that's the reason why I'll do it till the day I die, is because that's where I get my happiness.
Right.
I mean, some people get it by buying a super nice car and, you know, driving or living in a real nice house. That would also make me happy, but not as happy as these missions make me. And what happened really well for me that I was lucky about my life is the Destiny Forever. My bracelets have actually moved into that direction, because I used to just wear the bracelets as protection. And as I started selling in Hawaii, first it was a cool looking thing, and yeah, it's protection, yeah, maybe not, whatever, but it was power stones. Every power stone has its own property.
Right, and I think everybody that starts to understand the theory or the ideology and the analogies behind it, it goes deeper.
Yeah, and the thing that's happening now in Hawaii is everybody's coming to me because they're having good results in the bracelets. You know, people come in for arthritis. I put in the calcite into their bracelet, and it helps their arthritis. So it's a funny thing where it's naturally moving into my bracelet company that I was trying to use to help me fund a lot of missions up north. Is actually something that's creating a lot of happiness for me, because it's starting to help people now. So
that's awesome.
The whole movement of the bracelets that I have now it helps people. So it's like right in the line of what I want to do in my life.
And I think that's big, because it translates into something bigger than you, number one. Number two, you're giving back to a people. And number three, I don't think, and more and more, people are forgetting grassroots things. Like, and I know this sounds funny, but like, how to even iron, how to sew, how to do stuff like that. So traditionally, things that were healing for people, like power stones, okay, you know, like the Indians do that, you know, like they do their powwows for rain and stuff like that. And I think that traditionally, people have forgotten how powerful some of these things are in their belief. And not only that, but how natural remedies are really out there, and people have forgotten about them. You know, they only look at the medicinal purposes of what Western medicine has given them, right? Okay, we got antibiotics, we have this, we have that. But how many things are actually out there that can actually heal you and help you that you forget about, i.e. power stones, i.e., you know, sometimes they make mixes with, like, you know, baking sodas and powders and stuff like that, and you didn't even know it could help you. You know, just depending on whatever it is. And I think that stuff goes a long way. And the educating of an entire community, or the education of an entire people as a whole, is super powerful. And once they start to understand the benefits of what can help them, you have a huge market, because, you know, Guam, Tinian, Saipan, the Marianas Islands, you know, Hawaii, all the islands, you know, Japan itself, Philippines, you know, you have a lot of area to cover over there. And pretty soon, you may come to a point that, you know, you're going to have to help somebody. Somebody's going to have to help you make bracelets, because you're not going to be able to pump them out enough.
Yeah,
and fast enough.
That'd be a good day. And, you know, some people say that there's a lot of stuff that, you know, these type of stuff that help you is placebo. But if it is also placebo, isn't it helping?
Yeah, 100%. 100%.
Yeah, so, you know, I'm really excited about what's happening with the company.
So it's going well?
Yes, it's going really well.
Oh, good,
yes.
Good. You know, let's talk about Kid Yamamoto for a second. You're pretty close to him, very close, actually.
Yes.
His passing seemed kind of sudden, right, to the public.
Yeah.
Most people weren't aware that he was sick.
Yep.
Why didn't he want to share what he was going through with the public?
I don't know, because of course, you know, I did pull apart from Kid.
Right.
Yeah, because it was a for me, it was a loyalty issue that I had with him. So I did pull away, and I think because of that, I was considered someone on the outside. So as far as much as you guys know about his journey and cancer, as much as I know.
Okay.
So I didn't know either. I found out like when it was already too late, already when he was in the hospice. Okay. So I had no idea. The thing is, he used to be like a little brother to me. You know, the fact that we had a little bit of a falling out. It was a falling out, but it wasn't a falling out where we hate each other and we went opposite ways whenever we saw each other. We saw each other at events. I shook his hand, said, "Hi, how you doing? You doing good? Killer B, your fighters, Crazy B, they're doing awesome, great." Shake his hand, everything. You know, of course, I was married to his sister. We never really made contact or talked, which didn't bother me. But as far as me and Kid, although we did go our separate ways, we still had a very respectable relationship with each other. So, you know, as far as him getting cancer and gonna have to leave this earth, I really would have wanted to know about that. And what really disappointed me was that he went to Guam on his final days, and a lot of people that I called brothers were on Guam, and he notified them about his sickness, and it was kept a secret. He wanted a secret from everybody, and it was kept a secret from me, and it was disappointing because I didn't, you know, of course, because we had a falling out, I couldn't say any last words to him. And these people kept me from doing that. And some of those people that kept a secret from me were people that I've been known for like decades, and people that I would have died for tomorrow. Yeah. So in a way, it was very disappointing, but it was also eye-opening seeing some people that I thought we had 100% loyalty towards each other that we didn't. So it kind of made my circle of brothers a little smaller, but a little tighter. Yeah, very unfortunate thing with him.
Any funny stories you can share with us?
Man, you got stories, dude. I know you got stories. So we've been on a really serious tear right now, but I know you got stories. So let's get into some stories.
Like in what way? What kind of stories?
Sure.
Man, you got good stories, dude. I've listened to so many stories you put out. So I know you're gonna give us 2 or 3 really good ones. One of your best, wildest times in MMA, go.
My wildest times in MMA.
Or a funny story that you were at a show, something happened, because there's always crazy things that happen behind the scenes. I mean, I know whenever I did the Affliction shows, whenever I did UFC, WEC back in the day, all the there's always crazy things going on backstage that you never even, you know.
Okay. There's Pride. You know, Pride was a real interesting situation.
Okay.
It was a funny thing about Pride is they never tested for steroids.
Right.
Yeah. So
it was in the contract, actually.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. That's what I actually pointed out.
Yeah, it was in the contract. It's actually very in the bylaws of the contract. It states in there that you will not be tested. If you want to do steroids, it's your thing. You can do it 100%.
Wow. Yeah. So I remember reading that. I remember thinking, back in the day, you know, it wasn't like steroids is totally illegal to use. So for us to see that wasn't a big deal, you know. So when I read that, I remember that, and I remember saying that to somebody, and then you know how time passes. It's like, did I actually really see that? And one day I was cleaning out my closet, and some of the old contracts came out. So I went and flipped through it because I wanted to really see what the wording was. Did I misinterpret it or did I exaggerate it? And I went there, and it showed all the illegal things that they're testing for, your narcotics, blah, 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 blah.
And it was all there that you could do them.
It was there that they were testing for those things, which was like marijuana, cocaine, you know, all that kind of stuff. And at the end of that, they didn't have steroids written in it. So it wasn't just they didn't have it written. On the end of that, the second sentence, they said, we are not testing for steroid-based components.
Yeah.
And
crazy.
They literally said straight up, we're not testing, please do it. You know? So when I did that, I remember taking a picture of it and putting it on my Facebook, and it just kind of got blown out of the water. But that was one of the things that was real interesting with Pride, is they never had that type of, you know, rule that you couldn't take steroids, and of course it changed a lot of the way the fighters were. Like I didn't complain that I was fighting with Mark Kerr that was shot up with a lot of different stuff that made him like unreal, like a specimen.
Stop it.
I hope I didn't break those. Nobody knew that. Huh?
Mark was huge.
Yeah, he was huge, man. So yeah, that was.
Well, even Randleman. Randleman's gigantic, dude. Randleman's big.
Yeah, a lot of these guys.
But most of the guys, when Pride went away, and the guys that moved over from Pride to UFC,
right?
I mean,
they had a hard transition.
Definitely.
Yeah, probably because they couldn't do what they always used to do. Yeah. So that's a funny thing about the whole Pride thing. Yeah.
So it never bothered you knowing, like you said, Mark Kerr was,
No, maybe if I grew up in this day and age, and I knew that one of my opponents did steroids, I'd be as upset as Mark Hunt is upset about his opponents. But back in our day, it was okay. So, I mean, it wasn't totally okay, but it was understood that these people are probably doing it. And
I think the truth of the matter is that for most people, like we were talking about earlier, remember we said that the window for fighting is usually a short window, right? So in boxing, when that next big fight is coming up, just like we were talking about MMA earlier. And now it's so saturated, there's so many shows, nobody knows what's happening or who's even fighting anymore. Like, it's just that way, that's the way it is. You have UFC 179, 7 and 180 and 181 and 182 within 4 days of each other, and you don't know who the hell you're chasing. Looking at that from that aspect, I just lost my train of thought about what we were even talking about.
Steroids. Pride.
Well, if you look at it from an angle of guys like even the NFL, think about back in the day, Lyle Alzado, guys like that. There was a lot of guys that were indulging in steroids that it wasn't unheard of even in pro athletes. And the thing is like today's modern science, right? You have TRT and you have all these different aspects. Doctors they actually thoroughly understand, or not thoroughly, but in most cases have a better understanding of how to use real HGH, how to take tren, how to take TRT effectively, efficiently, and not so it hurts you or harms you, right? So you're not overtaking it, you're not, shooting up, you're getting your CBC counts checked regularly as far as your blood counts to keep you healthy. That didn't happen back then. You know what I mean? People's hearts were popping and that kind of shit. Ephedra was another big one, right? Because people were trying to lose weight, So looking at it from that aspect, guys were taking things that were probably so unhealthy for them that they didn't even realize.
A lot of people have said in the Pride days it was like open. People were just injecting themselves right then and there. I don't know if you ever saw any of that stuff.
I never saw any of that. No, that might be like an exaggeration, but I never saw any of that. Another funny thing in Pride is they used to bully a lot of the fighters.
I can see that.
I didn't know that. Like Rampage told me that when he fought Sakuraba, he was given like a week's notice, and they told him that if he didn't, Pride was a place to fight.
Right.
And they told him that if he didn't come and fight, he wasn't ever going to fight in Pride again. And even Mark Kerr, I think he was getting bullied by them. And the funny thing is, I used to actually bully them, which is really funny. I think because the foreigners, they could use their Yakuza clout, and they got a lot away with that, but with me they couldn't. It was funny. A funny story, if you want a funny story, so did you see when Egan fought Guy Menser?
Yes.
Yeah. So the story behind that is I just retired and I was pretty much done with fighting.
Right.
What I must say to you guys is the reason why I retired was because it wasn't because I was physically injured or unable to compete. It was because my style of fighting, I was walking to the ring for the 3 months training, preparing to die in the ring.
Right.
And it wasn't something that I just say like nowadays fighters say, I'm prepared to die, and then they tap out in the first adverse situation that they're in. I was really living that for those 3 months. And to do that, to actually walk into a place that you believe and you accept that you will die 20-something times, I mean, it's stressful.
Right.
And the reason I retired is because I felt that it was real stressful for me.
Go ahead.
Yeah, so that's it was just a stressful thing, and to get back to what I was trying to say is that what was I trying to say?
You were dying 1,000 times in the ring.
Yeah, and for me is for what was I saying?
You're saying that you trained yourself to 3 months knowing or knowing that you could die.
And Egan had taken the fight with Guy Metzger.
Oh yeah, okay,
and you had just retired.
Right. Yeah, so I was done, and Pride. I was still like a big name in Pride, so they wanted me back.
Right.
So they wanted to try and entice me back in the ring. So apparently, Pride had talked to Guy and told Guy that if you beat Egan, call Enson out in a bad way to bring him out of retirement. Because in a magazine interview prior to that fight, I remember saying something, just in theory, I was saying the only thing that could ever bring me out of Pride is somebody killed one of my family members and said, "Fuck you, I want to fight you next." That would probably make me fight. And they took it at heart, and they thought that like if after Pride beat
that was the way.
Yeah, that was the way. So, that's where some things in Pride were real dirty. They did stuff behind your back like that. They told Guy that I knew about it, that it was going to be like a pro wrestling thing for entertainment.
Yeah, that's garbage.
So he was going to say whatever you want. Enson will come up, take the mic, and get mad, and maybe he'll come out in retirement. So after Egan lost, I was going up to check on Egan and everything. Guy came up to me and said, remember, it's not personal. I was like, oh yeah, no, you beat Egan, shit, it's part of the fight, you won, you're a better fighter today, fine. And he goes, no, what I'm going to do is not personal. I'm like, what do you mean? What do you mean? What are you going to do? And he said, I got to call you out. And so you see in the video of that fight, I'm shaking his hand.
Yeah.
And I tell him, I'm retired.
He double took it. Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, he said. I told him, I'm retired. He goes, yeah, but I have to do it. And you remember, I didn't let his hand go, and I kind of like forced him into the corner, like tell him, don't fucking do it if you don't want to do it.
Right.
And as I was saying that, I realized that Guy was in a hard spot.
He was in a shit situation.
And I would kind of appreciate that he was honest with me. He did tone out the call out. He toned it down. He didn't say any bad shit about me, but what people don't know is what happened after. After we went back to the locker room, I was pissed. So I told they had little guys with headphones, little guys that they hired part-time, and they're watching us, and I told them I want to see the president. I want to see the president of Pride right now in my locker room. They wouldn't bring him. So I went to another level, and I started kicking those guys in the ass, literally. Kick him to get the president. They would run out scared, coming back with another guy, kick that guy, they come out. Finally, they're bringing one of the matchmakers, this guy Kawasaki. As soon as he comes in, I'm still fuming because it's not the president. I grab him and literally throw him on the ground, mount him, and about to punch him, where Egan grabs me, pulls me off, tells me, wait, he didn't do anything. Okay, calm down. Waited. Finally, the vice president, the one who's in charge of Rising right now, walked in, Sakakibara, and started begging me, telling me that, we don't know what happened. We're going to get to the bottom of this. And I said, okay, you better get to the bottom of this. We got to talk. This is fucked. I don't want to fight.
It's not fair. It's not okay.
An association that's going to play games like that. And Guy actually came into my locker room after that, apologized again. But Guy didn't do anything wrong. He did what he thought.
He did what he was being told, right?
Yeah, exactly. So I just appreciate the guy was super cool about it. The next day, they called me to the hotel that they hosted the Pride fights, and Sakakibara actually came in, and I was thinking to myself, man, shit, I don't know how they're going to apologize. They better be out the person in charge, or it's got to be, I was thinking it's got to be like, they got to give me like $2-3 grand to apologize for this.
Yeah, it's not fair.
He walks up with an envelope, and he says, we like to apologize to continue relationships with you, and he gave me an envelope with 10 grand in it.
Wow.
Yeah. So.
Fuck 3 G's.
Yeah. 3 grand is going to take these guys, but they gave me 10 grand, they apologized, but it's one of those stories that Pride wasn't really that straight up with everything. They had a lot of games, and of course, you people know nowadays there was some fixed fights in it, which I wasn't aware of at the time when I was fighting. Yeah.
A funny story, and I'll throw you guys a curveball. But as a matchmaker for so long with the MMA gig, and I remember I had a fight card, and it was based out of here in San Diego, and we had a guy on the card. And he actually called me the morning of, and he lived up in Victorville. He sent me a text message the morning of, and he said, man, I'm not fighting today, bro. And I was like, what did you just say to me? And he goes, I'm not fighting. I go, fuck, you're not. And he goes, no, I'm not fighting. I said, bro, if I have to drive to Victorville to pick your ass up and bring you back to San Diego, you are fucking fighting, because I have already done all your medicals, and that's $1,000 worth of work right there. You know what I'm saying? Like, medicals are not they're not cheap. And then to get you licensed with the CSAC and everything else, I was like, you are fighting. He's like, no, I'm not. I go, okay, bro, we'll see. I drove to Victorville, picked his ass up, and I made him come back with me to San Diego so he could fight on that card. And Larry Irvin, one of the inspectors, he laughed so hard. They were talking about it in the locker room about how I did that. And they go, I cannot believe you drove to this dude's house, banged on his door, and made him come outside. I said, sure did. I said, he wasn't going to fuck my card up. You know what I mean? And it was the disrespect that you just decided. Like, we spent $1,000 on your medicals. You're fighting.
Why did
you know what I mean?
He decided he didn't want to fight?
Bitch assness? I don't know.
No, really.
Pussyitis? Vagisil? Fuck, I don't know. I mean, you know how guys are. Like, it's, I think that the day and era has changed a little bit. Guys think that they wanted to fight. And there was a time that there was a lot of guys like that. They thought they wanted to fight, and then whenever it was finally showtime or the day of, they weren't so sure that they wanted to fight. I've seen that happen a few times. So, yeah. I mean, I'm sure you have too as well.
Who are some of the guys you like to watch in Pride?
Oh, I love to watch Vanderlei.
Yeah.
Yeah, Vanderlei. Even Rampage was a good one to always watch. In a different aspect, Nogueira. Big Nog, how he used to attack from the, doing jiu-jitsu and MMA and actually being aggressive at every
He was
position.
good at it, dude. Yeah, Big Nog was really good at that.
Even someone like Mark Coleman.
Yes.
Yeah, and in fact, I think because Pride instilled that give everything you got in the ring.
Oh, 100%.
Most of the fighters are exciting. I mean, you can name them all. Like Ninja, even when Shogun came in. All the guys are pretty exciting.
I agree.
Hearing, Igor Zanchin. There are a lot of exciting fighters. I mean, nowadays, in the UFC, there's only a handful that you can name.
Right.
But in Pride, I'm pretty much now naming the fighting things. I'm naming almost everybody. Yeah. I mean,
the whole squad, the whole list.
I'm like, okay, that's almost everybody. Matsui, Sakuraba. You got everybody in there that was really fighting and exciting. It was a good time, I think, in martial arts.
I agree.
And there was no shit talking.
No.
And going back to shit talking, I believe that a lot of the shit talking is done. A lot of people like Conor, in a way, he's doing shit talking to elevate his popularity.
Agreed.
But as far as like someone like Colby Covington, I think he's doing more shit talking to become the person that he is.
Right.
And if you're not, like someone like Damian Maia, he's so big and so known right now and doesn't shit talk a single word.
Not even a little bit.
And his martial arts ability alone will give him the recognition that he needs.
I agree.
Guys like Colby Covington, I believe the only reason why he's big as he is because his shit talking. His aura and his being a role model wasn't enough. Yeah.
Right. All right, guys. Well, with that, we got to wrap this up. We really appreciate you coming here. Like, this is a big deal. I know we don't get you here in the U.S. very often, so whenever Drew saw you were coming, we were super excited to try to get you in the studio again today. Drew, you got anything else?
No, just appreciate your time, man. Thank you.
No, thank you very much.
Thanks
for having me, man.
Enson, tell everybody how to find you on social media.
As Enson Inoue, straight up on Facebook, on Instagram, on Twitter. DestinyForever.com is my bracelet company. If you guys email that, I'm always me or my girlfriend Sarah who are the ones looking at that. So
get a bracelet, guys. Get a bracelet. DestinyForever.com.
Right on.
All right. Well, with this episode and all of our episodes, you can check us out at 5grappling.com. This week we close out a Jiu-Jitsu Life with Enson Inoue, and we really thank you for your time.
Thank you.
We're out. Have a great day.
All right.